All right, welcome back to another day in the garage. And today is a fun one because we're actually going to be working on the race SV650 because I've got a track day coming up at the end of the month. And that means that thing needs to get gone through because I bought it as a track prepped bike, ready to race. However, I really feel like I need to go through and double check everything on it and just make sure that I'm comfortable with it and that I know exactly what I'm getting myself into. And so for starters, that's going to be removing the slicks that are on it because I've never run slicks before and I'm not super comfortable jumping straight into doing that. So I have a set of DOT legal tires that are race compound, super common to run. In fact, I ran them on my XR250 Motard last season. So I'm going to put a set of DOTs on it for at least the first couple rounds that I'm racing this bike. Then I'm going to go over to slicks with the warmers and the whole thing. But I want to acclimate with the bike first. And that means taking a little bit of time and slowing down, getting comfortable. And DOTs is the easiest way to do that. I probably wanted to put a fresh set of tires on it anyway. So for the money, I'm going to get something that works a little bit better. So that's where we're going to start today. Peeling the front wheel off of this and then breaking the bead on the tire. Maybe we're going to build something to break the bead on the tire, depending on how hard these are to get off. I'm not sure what these Bridgestone slicks, how stiff they are in the carcass. So we'll find out. But maybe we're going to build something to break the bead on them. We'll peel the rear off as well. It's mainly going to be mountain tires today, but we'll talk through it a little bit. Let's get to work. Getting down to breaking the tire here, and you can see I'm using a not super special setup here. I've got a chunk of lumber that I use to put kayaks in the bed of a pickup truck and a scrap piece of wood, and I'm using that to lever underneath my toolbox to break these slicks down onto the center of the wheel. It's pretty easy. You just want to use something that's not going to damage the wheel. And levering the spoons off is the same way, or levering the tires off with the spoons is the same way. You just want to make sure that you're getting everything off without damaging your wheel. These, I usually end up chipping the paint at some point because these rims have been painted, and I wouldn't have painted them personally, but the previous owner did, and so I'm not going to strip the paint off. So I'm not too worried about the exact look or condition. This isn't a show bike, it's a race bike, so no big deal. I used my favorite tool, the Baja No Pinch tool, and got everything pushed on for the rear using a little compressor there because it's easier than my big shop compressor to inflate everything, and got everything nice and lubed up. So the Beetle seat, these Bridgestones are pretty tight on the rim, so it does require a decent amount of lubrication to get everything to go into place nice and easy. I couldn't imagine fighting these without using the proper tools and proper lubrication. It would not be a good time. I'm not a tire guy, but I've mounted enough tires to know that it's not fun to fight these on, especially with traditional spoons. All right, for those of you that hung around through that time lapse and were probably yelling at your screen about a handful of things, we're going to talk through what I did and why, because it's pretty simple. Those Bridgestone slicks weren't nearly as stiff as I expected, and the DOTs went on cake because I'm using my favorite tool. Let's take a look at what I was using and why. And the heart of my toolkit is this Baja No Pinch tool. And the reason I love this thing is it works with tube tires, it works with tubeless tires, it stretches things out, it just makes life extremely easy. Second thing is this bead buddy from Tusk. It clips on the rim and it makes sure that you're not fighting the bead as it kind of goes around the tire. So that makes life nice and easy. It holds it inside of the rim instead of having the bead constantly pop up. Third thing are these two scraps of wood. They're pretty thin, just 1x stock here, but that is just enough that when I set the front rim on the ground, the brake rotors were not actually touching the concrete and they weren't touching the wood either. So it saved me from damaging my brake rotors. And then the third and final thing, if you don't have a bottle of dedicated tire mounting lubricant, this is what you need in your garage. This bottle will last forever, and I think it cost me like a whopping $12. Don't skimp on this. Don't use whatever. You saw me reaching in the drawer here and grabbing. I have a little bit of tire lube because this works really well. Anything that is rubber, this stuff is safe on. So if you're mounting up a goofy thing or having trouble with an O-ring sliding over something, tire lube is your friend. It dries nice and like almost to a tacky, but it's not a glue. So it doesn't glue the tire on. It just aids in lubing and getting everything mounted, and then you can take everything off later and it doesn't leave any residue. This stuff is great. If you don't have a bottle of it in your garage, you're doing it wrong. And buy the horrible thing to go with it. It's worth it. So we've got our slicks over here, and these are going to hang out. I think these still have a few miles in them. I'm going to take them to the track. I might try and sell them to somebody. They've probably got a couple practice sessions in them for a fast guy, maybe a day for me. And then we've got the SV up on stands. We're going to throw the tires back on it and then start inspecting a few other things, mainly the brakes. We're going to go through the brakes, take a look at those. Kind of interestingly enough, back here, fairly fresh brake pads in the back. So thankfully, won't have to worry about that. That's in good shape. The chain's actually in pretty good shape. So at the back end, I think everything's actually fine. I'm ready to take that to the track. Just a couple other final inspections. For the fronts, looks like I've got plenty of life left on those pads. No real concerns there. I do have spares in my spares box. Somewhere there they are. For both fronts and the rear. Got the nice EPFA double-centered H pads. Those are race pads. Got a couple oil filters. Some other spares in there that needs to get organized and documented and everything like that, but no big deal. So let's get to putting tires back on motorcycle. Before I got all the way done with this, I wanted to, actually let me turn the music off here. Boop. There we go. I wanted to talk about one of the luxuries on this bike, and that is this brake hardware. And you can see here, this is pre-drilled brake hardware. And these are super handy to have because you just tighten them down, and then you always have a flat, you just tighten them down, and you always have a flat to safety wire these two together with, because your brakes have to be safety wired when you're going to the track. So, or at least I prefer to have mine safety wired when I go to the track because it just makes me feel better. Some track day organizations might not require stuff like this, but It gives me peace of mind knowing that I assembled it, I torqued it, and then I put safety wire on it, and I don't have to think about it ever again. Makes life a little bit easier. So, got the fresh tires mounted up. Everything is nice and loose, spinning free. The rear is the same. So, gonna finish torquing down those two bolts, torque down both the rear axle and this here front axle, and then the tire swap is at least done, so we're one step closer to going to the track. It's a quick project, I know, but it took a little bit of time. Got everything safety wired up and torqued down. Wheels and tires are done, brakes are inspected. That's a couple things off my checklist for the end of the month track day, which means the SV, so that much closer to going racing, and so am I, because it's a countdown to Heartland Moto Fest in Topeka, Kansas with ARMA. I'm gonna run Sound of Thunder 2 or Sound of Thunder 3, stand corrected. So I need to double check my rule book, make sure I can get my numbers on and all the backgrounds and all of those fun things. But before the fun things can go, got to get it running, got to get it happy, everything tuned in, me, safe, all my gear, spec'd and teched. It's a little bit of a process, but with tires mounted, it's one step done. So thanks for tuning in. We've got a bunch of projects coming on, so feel free to subscribe down below or don't. I don't know. Whatever. We're going to go racing. We're going to play with some motorcycles. We're going to play with cars. Model A in the background, the Corvairs out in the carport. There's a bunch of fun stuff coming. So tune in. We'll see you next time. Go work on something.